Well, since you all live in Virginia, I am sure at least a few of you have had an experience with a honey locust tree. The ones with the huge, huge thorns that rip your skin and literally will pop your tractor tires, no kidding. And then these crazy trees, you cut one down and 3 more appear. You cannot get rid of these trees to save your life. And for me, this is a good word picture of what forgiveness is. Unforgiveness. The forgiveness comes later. This is the unforgiveness. And I'm not talking about elementary unforgiveness when somebody offends you and they come and apologize and you forgive them. I'm talking about the big, big moments in your life when the puzzle of your life gets thrown in the air and it shatters to the ground in a million pieces. You have to put it back together and you have missing pieces. That's what I'm talking about. When I was 24, I found myself sitting on my family room sofa looking at my wedding album and tears streaming down my face. The words of my husband were, "I'm leaving you for somebody else at work, and you're not going to have anybody else the rest of your life." And these words kept flooding through my mind as I was sobbing looking at this wedding album. Then the other thoughts came into my mind. How am I going to take care of my children who were asleep in bed right now? They were 4 and 14 months old. I had no marketable skills. I didn't go to college. I had children. And now I had to take care of them. So that was a wake-up moment, let me tell you. Thankfully, I have a God who I serve who likes those wake-up moments. And I pulled up the bootstraps, started getting jobs, childcare so I could have my kids with me, photography, anything, cleaning houses. Yeah, I used to clean this one house and dream about living in that house. Now, a little bit of a side story. I now live in that house. God is really good. When my children turned about 9 and 7, I realized that there was a honey locust tree in my heart that I needed to deal with. And I knew that going to my ex-husband and talking to him about it was not a good idea at all. This was the type of forgiveness that you deal with the big guy, God. And you have him get in your heart and prune that unforgiveness out. And praise God, he did that. And over the years, my ex-husband moved back to Vermont, so we didn't really have a lot of contact with him. And by the time the boys turned 18, of course, no more check in the mail, so why have any contact with him? So it pretty much stopped. And then Brent decided he was going to get married. And all of the thoughts in my mind were, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my son. Because you know when you get married, you lose your son, right? And I thought for sure I was going to lose my son. So not a single prayer or thought went to my ex-husband's coming to town. Didn't think about it, didn't consider it, didn't pray about it. And then they showed up at my house a couple days before the wedding to spend some time with Brent, and they both gave me a hug in the driveway. Well, I thought, well, that's odd. They gave me a hug. What do I do with that? And as I'm walking into the house, God said, ask him to give the toast. So I actually had to call Brent to get his phone number because I didn't have it. And I called him and I said, how you doing? Wondering if you'd like to give the toast for the wedding. And he said, well, talk about waiting until the last minute. And then he said, yeah, I'll do it. So again, the thought is out. I did what God said, went on. the rehearsal day came about. My sister and I went early, put all the tablescapes out, got everything set up for the dinner afterwards. We rehearsed, we came into the fellowship hall for the dinner, we ate. Rob gets up to the mic. I'm sitting at the table. I'm not often speechless. I was speechless. He started with a few nice things about Brent, and then he looked at my table and said, anything good you see is because of his mother and her husband, because they raised my son. I was the absent father. Well, I was blown away. He wasn't just telling me this, he was telling every family member that was sitting in that rehearsal dinner. It was amazing. And he went on and on about the book, The Rich Dad versus the Poor Dad, and he was the poor dad, and my husband was the rich dad because my husband raised his son and took care of him and nurtured him. And that was how the weekend went. And my ex-husband and I became friends. It was amazing. It was like God took a bucket of blessings and just poured it on us. And I've got to say, I think that was possible because I had God eradicate that honey locust that was in my heart years before that. Now we're going to move forward some more years, and this summer, July, I turned 60, and my kids threw me a big party, and lots of people were there, and I heard that my ex-husband was coming to town. So I called him. I'm like, hey, come to the party. I hear you're going to be in town. He's like, all right. So we had left that morning so they could decorate. And when we got back to the house, everybody was there. And he met me in the kitchen, my ex-husband did. And he said, Karen, I just want to tell you it's so great to see how happy your life is and how great things have turned out for you. I was like, oh, thanks, Rob. And then we continued with the party, and all of a sudden, a few hours later, it starts to get dark, and they call me out to the deck. So I go out to the deck, and my ex-husband and our oldest son are putting on a fireworks show for me. Now, let me just tell you, that was big. That was very big. And a few days later, my husband, who I have been married to now for 27 years, and we have 2 children together. Yay. Things did work out in the end, let me tell you. But when my husband asked me, what was the best part about your party? I said, you may not want to ask me that question. Well, why not? Well, honestly, it was my ex-husband being there and putting on a fireworks show for me. That was pretty awesome. So I will say this. Forgiveness is always best, and it's always best to just deal with it because the redemption is amazing. Thank you.